With the coronavirus crisis taking the country into its grip, a number of local authorities across the country, including the Kathmandu Valley, have imposed strict restrictions on public movement. Even as the government this time around has refrained from using the term lockdown, it is felt that the country is in a state of undeclared lockdown with massive restrictions on movement. Good morning, I'm Abhyuday Shrestha, and these are the headlines of the hour. 26 more COVID-19 cases reported this morning. Total number of cases in the country reaches 29,727. Death tally climbs to 129. The federal capital wears a deserted look today as well after undergoing another spell of complete restrictions on movement. U.S. President Donald Trump's former advisor Steve Bannon arrested and charged with fraud over a fundraising campaign to build a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border. And Trinbago Knight Riders defeat Jamaica Talawas by 7 wickets in the Caribbean Premier League. Nepalese spin prodigy Sandeep Lamichhane claims a wicket in the team's loss. 26 more coronavirus cases were reported today, and in addition to 707 reported yesterday. With this, the national tally has climbed to 29,727. The death toll, meanwhile, has climbed to 129. An additional 26 individuals tested positive for the virus in Chitwan's Bharatpur hospital today. 22 of them are from Chitwan and 1 each from Makwanpur, Parbat, Nawalparasi East and Parsa. 763 infections were reported yesterday, including 200 in the Kathmandu Valley. Jumla also reported 56 cases yesterday. Meanwhile, 17,964 people have been discharged from various hospitals after full recovery as of the latest updates, with 264 individuals being discharged in the past 24 hours, taking the recovery rate to 61%. 129 are in ICUs and 7 are receiving treatment in ventilators. Meanwhile, 1 more person has succumbed to the virus in Rupandehi, taking the death tally in the country to 129. The deceased has been identified as 70-year-old male from Devdaha municipality. 3 people had died in Parsa and 1 each in Kathmandu, Chitwan, Makwanpur and Saptari yesterday. The capital has worn a deserted look this morning as well due to the prohibitory orders imposed in the 3 districts of the Kathmandu Valley from yesterday. All the 3 districts of the valley have restricted the operation of all transport services except for emergency vehicles. Most of the markets in the capital remained closed all day yesterday. Meanwhile, pharmacies and other shops selling essential items remained open. As people have been restricted from coming out of their houses, the streets wore a deserted look. Security personnel have been strictly implementing the prohibitory orders by conducting regular checks throughout the valley. The 3 district administration offices in the Kathmandu Valley have stated that people only with emergencies would be allowed on the streets. The government has also warned of taking stern actions against anyone found defying the prohibitory order. Very essential services like health services and transport of food and water have been allowed to operate. The Home Ministry said that, depending on the spread of coronavirus, some 26 local bodies across the country have imposed restrictions. The Kathmandu Valley is the only place in the country which lacks isolation and quarantine centers, despite being the federal capital. Both COVID-19 and other patients are being treated in the same hospital, while with increasing pressure, the government is now looking for possible areas for the construction of isolation centers. We have more in this report.
Kathmandu residents are one more time compelled to confine themselves inside their houses following the restrictions on movement, along with the fear of contracting the virus. At the same time, questions have been raised on government's capability to prepare itself to address the challenges in the face of the pandemic. Despite witnessing some 200 new cases on a daily basis, the federal capital still lacks isolation centers. Patients having other health ailments are refraining themselves from visiting hospitals as COVID-19 patients are being treated in the same hospitals. There are limited COVID-19 hospitals in the capital which are already overwhelmed with patients. The government itself is clueless about zones to isolate people in case of a transmission. Meanwhile, the local administration in Kathmandu has proposed 2,500 bed capacity hospitals and isolation centers to treat COVID-19 patients. Earlier, the 4-month lockdown that started from 24th of March had helped contain the spread of virus in the country. However, as soon as the government lifted the lockdown, major cities and dense settlements, including the Kathmandu Valley, witnessed massive surge in the COVID count. Meanwhile, in a bid to control the surging number, local administration of 30 districts have issued prohibitory orders and imposed lockdown, barring normal services to operate. Public health experts have opined that if the government fails to come up with necessary arrangements, it will lead to a health crisis in the country. The ongoing prohibitory order and lockdown in major cities could offer the government with a last gasp effort to counter the rising threat of coronavirus in the country.
The government has once again given permission for chartered flights to rescue stranded Nepali migrants abroad. The decision of COVID-19 Crisis Management Committee, or CCMC, to allow private airline companies to operate chartered flights has raised doubts on its motive. The CCMC had earlier halted the flights of the national flag carrier. We have more in this report.
An aircraft belonging to the state-owned Nepal Airlines Corporation, flown to Dubai to bring home 250 Nepali migrants, returned home empty-handed on Tuesday. The committee itself directed the suspension of the flight, citing that the hotel quarantines were not ready to lodge the rescued individuals. However, on the same day, an aircraft belonging to Turkish Airlines brought some 201 passengers following approval from the committee. Likewise, the CCMC allowed private sectors, Himalayan Airlines, to operate chartered flights to Bangladesh on Thursday, while the process has been forwarded for several chartered flights to many countries for Friday. Meanwhile, Tourism Minister Yogesh Bhattrai had an argument with CCMC Coordinator and Deputy Prime Minister Ishwar Pokhrel regarding the approval of chartered flights while suspending rescue flights of migrant workers. The normal flights have been suspended since the 22nd of March. Sources have claimed that Deputy Prime Minister Pokhrel is behind the approval of the chartered flights, which have been allowed to charge up to 3 times additional airfare. Over 50,000 Nepali migrants stranded abroad have already been rescued since mid-June through chartered flights. Another 50,000 migrant workers in the Gulf countries are still waiting to be rescued for the past 4 months. The scenario has raised massive doubts on the credibility of the CCMC, a highly authorized government body.
Some 250,000 Nepali nationals have already arrived through several border points of Sudur Paschim province alone since the government sealed the international border in late March. However, with increasing hardship to make their ends meet, people have started returning to India amid the pandemic. As the number of cases in India surged over 222,000, Nepali migrants returned home through several border transits in Sudur Paschim province. However, the number of people returning to India through Gaurifata and Gaddachoki border points has increased in recent days as these migrant workers are seen risking their life for survival. Even as the movement of people in the border area has intensified, the local authority lacks facilities for screening COVID-19, which has further increased the risk. Since India remains a major job destination for the people in the far western part of Nepal, they are compelled to leave home seeking for works in Indian cities. In our Public Voice segment, we had asked the residents of Hetauda, why does the government most often come up with inferior development works? Let's take a look at what they had to say.
उपभोक्ता समितिमा काम गर्ने व्यक्तिहरुमा चाहिँ एउटा अपरिपक्वता र काम सम्बन्धी नलेजहरु कम र त्यसमा लाग्ने टेक्निशियन प्राविधिकहरु चाहिँ स्थानीय सरकारसँग दक्ष प्राविधिकहरुको पनि कमी त्यो दुईटै कारणले गर्दाखेरि अहिले चाहिँ निर्माणका कामहरुमा चाहिँ कमजोरी देखिएको
कमिसनको कारणले चाहिँ नि जति आएको बजेट हुन्छ सबै चाहिँ सदुपयोग हुनु अथवा त्यति बराबरको चाहिँ काम नभएको कारणले गुणस्तरहीन काम भएको
वर्षायाम सुरु भएपछि काम सुरु गर्नाले गर्दाखेरि गुणस्तरहीन काम हुन पुगेको हो।
ठेकेदारले कसरी काम गरिरहेछ, कुन सामानहरू प्रयोग गरिरहेछ यसलाई हेर्ने निकायहरू एकदम फितलो भएको कारणले नै विकास निर्माणको कामहरू पछि परेका हुन्।
कमिसनको लोभमा विकास निर्माणका कार्यहरू गर्नु भएन।
And it's time now for our segment Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion.
Public Pulse.
And here's the question. Why is there lack of women leadership in the political parties and constitutional bodies? Your options are A, male-dominated psychology, B, feeble policies, and C, lack of women initiative. The voting is on. Type in EWS, select your option A, B, or C, and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. And that's all for the moment. Keep watching Kantipur Television HD for more news and entertainment. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.